Please be seated. Today we have two guest preachers with us to talk about their trip to Kenya. But before I turn the pulpit over, I've got a little teeny thing to say about the gospel reading today. Because it ends with that line, he'll be thrown into the darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. But I feel like I can't just let that hang out there. So when I was younger, I got in trouble because of a sunburn. We were going on a trip Memorial Day weekend, and I got in the car after I had presumably been at school all day, and I reached behind me to grab the seatbelt and went, ow! And my parents were like, what happened, Carrie? And I've got a little sunburn. So where'd you get that sunburn at school? I sat out at lunchtime. Darn Irish skin. And finally I had to confess that we had gone to Green Lakes for the day. Kids, stay in school. We've gone to Green Lakes for the day. And my dad said to me, Carrie, we're very disappointed in that behavior. We expect more of you. And that's all I needed to hear in order to straighten up. Another parent who had another kid in a different style might have said, I'm taking away this, and this, and you're grounded for this, and this. Go get the belt, the spoon, and the whatever. Get ready for your punishment. I didn't need that. My parents didn't need to say that. I got on the straight and narrow no matter what. I think what we have here in Matthew's gospel is a little bit of Jesus' teaching about not hiding your talents, not being afraid and burying them, but rather using them. That sounds like Jesus to me. The whole bury your treasure and I will send you into darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth, I think maybe that was Matthew's edition. And I don't think that we're the kind of kids who need that threat in order to behave. Maybe Matthew's community did. Maybe they wouldn't listen to the message unless they heard, or they'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Just like some children, maybe have a hard time behaving unless the parent says, or I'm going to ground you, or grab the big wooden spoon, or whatever the parents say. So I think that was Matthew's way of trying to get us to pay attention. We can pay attention to Jesus' message without that, and we don't have to be scared of the weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's just his parenting approach, I think. And with that, I'd like to invite Cindy Adamowski and the Reverend Deacon Dorothy Pierce to come forward, please. Cindy is, of course, one of our beloved parishioners. She works with the Sisters of St. Francis here in Syracuse, where her job title used to be Director of Aging Services until she spruced it up a bit to be
the Director of Life Enrichment and Wellness.
All of us who are aging appreciate that. And we have Deacon Dorothy here, who is a vocational deacon in the same vocation as Deacon Shelley, but instead of being placed in one parish, she works in all the parishes in her district. So that's really unique and really neat. She also does a lot with jail ministry, and she is a retired teacher. So thank you both for being with us today.
In the name of the one holy and living God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Many of you are aware that Dorothy and I recently traveled to East Africa to volunteer at a school for approximately 200 children that the Sisters of St. Francis sponsor, which is located in a small town called Timau. The sisters have been ministering in Kenya since 1971. Most of these children who are able to attend this school through funding provided by individual benefactors are poor, disadvantaged, homeless, migrants, or orphans as a result of the widespread AIDS epidemic that is prevalent across Africa. Many of you generously donated stuffed animals, suitcases, and money to help us pay for getting extra luggage full of supplies to the children. Our collection of furry friends was very well received by the sisters and the children. You also prayed for our safety while in Kenya, which Dorothy and I are so very grateful for. I know a number of you expressed to me concern about the emerging Ebola outbreak, and were wondering if this was going to cause us to postpone our trip. Since this horrifying disease was spreading at the time only in West Africa, we were never in any danger of being exposed to this virus. I continue to pray for the more than 4,800 people who have died from this disease, and also pray for all those who are caring for the sick and the suffering. When Dorothy and I talked about what we wanted to say to all of you this morning, we realized our task was going to be very difficult, since so many of our experiences touched us so very deeply and profoundly. I know we have been transformed in ways that we could never have imagined. The children who we spent time with in St. Elizabeth Primary School and St. Clair Technical School were just precious. Engaging with them and their teachers was such a joy to us, and the sound of their voices will forever remain in our hearts. The younger children loved to be near us and touch us, and would fight with one another to be able to hold both of our hands as we walked together. There were times when Dorothy and I had multiple children hanging on for dear life to each of our arms. While in the classroom, sometimes we would sit and observe the children from the back while their teacher was giving a lesson. One by one, the children would turn in their seats and just stare at us. I think we were a little bit of a distraction. What became very obvious to Dorothy and I was that God was truly at the center of these children's lives. The depths of their faith were expressed through prayers, of songs, of worship and praise, and dancing. The children were taught to close their eyes while praying. It makes me smile when I bring images to mind of the younger children covering their eyes with their hands to try to keep them shut. Dorothy and I attended Mass every morning with the older students and sisters. What was noticeably absent from the chapel pews were Bibles, prayer books, and hymnals. They didn't need them. The children had all within them, all they needed to express their thanks and praise to our Lord. I don't think I will ever forget the sound of their beautiful singing, which drifted out of the open windows as we made our way to chapel each morning. In the November issue of The Grapevine, Carrie's letter to us is about the importance of song. And she tells us, singing our faith together with fellow Christians is such a joy and a privilege. We are all aware that singing is a beautiful form of prayer. And Carrie also writes in her letter, clearly, God is in song. Dorothy and I experienced God's presence through the voices of those children. These were most assuredly moments of grace. The children also gathered to pray during morning assembly in the center courtyard and before their noonday meal, which consisted of a hearty soup of potatoes, cabbage, carrots, and beans. On some days, the soup would be served over rice. Meat was added to that soup once a week, every Wednesday. The children received a cup of nutritious 4-grain porridge in the morning and a piece of fruit later in the afternoon. For some, this would be their only food for the rest of the day. The poverty we witnessed was profound. Most families are living in tiny 1- or 2-room houses constructed of mud or tin with dirt floors. There is no indoor plumbing or electricity. Water is collected from a river. Cooking is done over a charcoal fire. Many families attempt to get temporary or seasonal work as pickers at surrounding farms, where women take in wash and perform other menial labor to earn what money they can to purchase food. I cannot even begin to count the number of times I silently thank God for the bountiful blessings that we all experience in this country, especially for basic necessities such as clean, running water, electricity, and plentiful food. A few months ago, Bishop Skip wrote in his letter to the people of our diocese that Christ has no borders. Christ has no borders. His statement really resounded with me, and I have deeply reflected about what this means for me. God is at work in each of our lives every day. How we choose to serve and honor God is different for all of us. Many of us serve God in our homes, in our families, our neighborhoods, at church, in our own communities, and those outside of our communities. We minister to those we know and to those we may never have the opportunity to meet personally. We have graciously welcomed the stranger. Oftentimes, we never really know the true impact of what we have done in someone's life. God is very grateful to us for however and wherever we choose to reach out and minister to his people in need. For some of us, it could be just beyond our front door, or it could be at a little mission school at home. It's all the same to God. I wanted to share with you a very short segment of some of the children singing. Dorothy and I visited all of the classrooms, and when we entered one classroom, the children immediately stood up, and the teacher directed them to welcome us with a song. This particular song is just a short segment. They're also doing a dance to it. This is so much a part of their culture. So I'd like you just to listen to a very short segment.
Huge smiles with that also. All the children were so beautiful. They were just amazing. So anyway, thank you for inviting me here today. And I don't know if you noticed it about Cindy, probably not about me because I don't know a lot of you, but she's a little taller than she was before we went on the trip. We were really stretched. We really were. It was an amazing experience because both of us have traveled together and on other mission trips. And I think I'm speaking for Cindy also. We were really stretched because we lived a lot of what we experienced with the children and their families. We were without water for 4 days. We were without electricity. And so that really made that and 100 other things made great impact on us. So I want to say something about the gospel reading first. That's an amazing reading. And one of the things that really touched my heart was that about the third servant. We know what he did. We know what he didn't do. But he did it in fear. He acted in fear. And in life, and especially in our trip, we couldn't act in fear. You were praying for us, and we felt it. A lot of people were praying for us, and we could feel the waves of your prayer and your love over us all the time. So while we were very prudent, and we were very careful, we also tried to not act in fear, because throughout the whole gospel, Jesus tells us again and again, don't be afraid. I'm with you. And as a deacon in particular, whenever I go on a trip, I think, well, I'm out there to bring God to people. Well, as Cindy said so nicely, God was already there, of course, very busy and very much at work. And so that reminded me right off the bat about one of my favorite books entitled The Prayer Journal by Flannery O'Connor. Perhaps some of you have read it. It's just a little book. It's a wonderful book. And in it, Flannery O'Connor writes about her having an eternal embryo within her soul. She says, I must grow. And so when we were in Tamau, we had that sense of God speaking those words, breathing those words. I must grow. I must grow every place that I go and with every beautiful person that we met. We really felt it there. God saying, I want to unfold my life, my love, my spirit, and my being in all of these precious children. It was so obvious that God was at work doing those things. I must be visible, breathing, and present in not only the children, but their families, the teachers, the priests, the sisters, everyone in that community. I must grow. And God's saying, you know what? I'm not going to let anything stop me. I'm not going to let poverty, I'm not going to let malnutrition, I am not going to let violence, disease, any of these deep, dark needs. God's saying, they are not going to stop me from working in my children. And so we really experienced that. That I am going to be happy. I'm going to be joyful. You heard those voices. We got to hear them every day. There was joy amidst all of those very deep, dark needs. Very, very deep. That God was present and warm in their flesh and blood of all those children, those sweet people of Tamau. So it was a gift, a beautiful gift, for us to not only witness, but to be present and to participate and live with this eternal embryo among what a lot of people might think would be a very unlikely place and in some unlikely people. A beautiful reminder that God's divine dream that we know all about already envelops the whole world, including very vulnerable persons, including all of those that we met in Tamau. So we did experience a lot of the challenges, and I'd like for us for a moment to imagine, well, we don't have to imagine what day it is. Today's Sunday, and here we are, and I had some refreshments out in the hall earlier, and I had breakfast, and I imagine that maybe you had breakfast. And yesterday was Saturday. You don't need me to tell you that, but yesterday was Saturday, and I imagine that most of us had several meals on Saturday. But if you could take yourself back to what you had for lunch on Friday, imagine that that was your last meal until tomorrow's lunch. Because that is one of the things that most of the children have to experience in Tamau on a regular basis. That they get that one, I call it 1.5 meals a day. The porridge that Cindy was talking about. And then the stew for lunch. And then the lunch on Friday is it until Monday's lunch. Imagine that. And so they come to school really hungry, and of course that creates a lot of other problems too. By the way, almost forgot. This bowl might actually be a little large, wouldn't you say? This is a bigger bowl than what the children had to put their stew in. And imagine that that's the only meal that they got during the day, during the week, and the only meal from Friday until Monday. And then, this is really bona fide dirty water. This is the water that the people of Tamau had to drink. This is what they had to drink on a regular basis. They had to go and haul it often from the river, or they got it out of a rusty old spigot, but they drank it, they cooked their food in it, they washed their clothes in it, they took baths in it. You can imagine why there was so much sickness There was no Ebola, but there was a lot of other stuff that they had to endure on a regular basis. Entire families being very, very sick all the time. Imagine one more thing, 1.5 more things. Imagine that what you have on today, that looks lovely, and imagine that that's the only outfit you have. And that's it for a whole year. That you have to wear that every single day, even into your sleep at night, for like a whole year. Most of the children there have one outfit for a year. That would be very difficult. I can't imagine it. I can only imagine, what would happen if I wanted to have it washed, for one thing. Then I'd have to go back to that dirty water. But these are just a few of the challenges and things that are lacking among the people of Tamau. And yet, while it was very heartbreaking to witness it and to participate in it at times, it was also very, very encouraging and inspiring to see that they were rising above that they were allowing God to be very much at work in them, that they were happy. The children sang songs, they hugged us, they played games, they were eager and hungry to learn and to share with each other and to share with us. Their parents tried so hard, they are trying so hard, to dream viable dreams for their children, with our help, of course. But they want their children to have a better life than what they have now. And so they have that hope within them. And we know where that hope comes from. It comes from God. So that was really inspiring. The children were just so sweet. They were wonderful. The sisters and the priests and all the people of the community could almost imagine this big cloud of dreams being dreamed for all of them. So Cindy and I were very much inspired to feel God rising up in us also in ways that, allow us to become new persons. The people that we were when we stepped on the plane in Newark were not the same persons that stepped off the plane. We were taller, spiritually, maybe even physically, who knows. But it was really great for us to experience being part of that continual embryo, that need for God to grow in all people, everyone, everywhere. Even the people of Tamau and all those other places in the world where need is so great. You're going to find we know that God is everywhere. God is saying, I promise that if you let me, I will give you a good and beautiful life. And I will have Christ grow through you, through the entire world. And we truly saw that in the children and their families of St. Elizabeth's School. So we're reminded again by our gospel reading this morning that our lives are not to be lived in hiding. We must not hide them. They are to be lived and acted out in hope and love and never acted out in fear. Because with God growing in us, we can be as tenacious as the wonderful people in Tamau. I have a little prayer from the Iona prayer book, which I'd like to share with you. Because Cindy and I felt very led to this place. And we're so happy that, we can share this with you today. So here we are. Loving God, you have led us to this place, not to shield us from heartache and the pain of human life, but to heal us and inspire us, to gently redirect us till we see the world as you do, and to love it with your love. Amen.